Even as economists almost universally agree that fiscal discipline is most crucial for India at this juncture, one voice from Niti Aayog seems to differ. Dhiraj Nayyar, who is an officer on special duty and head of economics and finance and commerce at Niti Aayog, believes that the government needs to loosen its purse strings if it wants to accelerate growth. He's written a piece in BloombergView. Let's listen to ma'am himself. Dhiraj, thank you so much indeed for joining us. You believe that the government should be spending itself out of trouble. Why?
I wouldn't quite put it in those words. My view is this: that, I mean, there is a slowdown in growth. I mean, there are two ways to look at it. One is what has happened over the last 6, 7, 8 months, which many people have attributed to the twin shocks, if you like to call them that, of demonetization and GST. Now, these are temporary. Demonetization, the remonetization has been complete. Whatever effect there was will soon wear off. GST, there was destocking and so on. So I think these are the kind of things where the economy will pick up from. But we're talking about moving from 5.7 to maybe 6.5, between 6.5 and 7. Where I am coming from is that, look, we don't want to be satisfied with just 7. We want to be 8 plus. And to get there, I think we need to loosen the purse strings a little, because private investment, which is a key driver to get us to 8% plus growth, that level, or even 9%, which was seen earlier until 2007, we are not getting a response on that. And therefore, I think at this point, public investment must play a role in helping boost the growth rate, and in fact, crowding in private investment. So I don't think the economy is in as much trouble as people would like it to be, but obviously we want to be at an aspirational growth rate of 8%.
Dhiraj, afternoon. This is Ira joining in as well. I have two questions or two grouses to pick with your piece. Sorry. One is that even if one buys the fact that there isn't enough sort of fiscal stimulus in the economy and you need to push more fiscal stimulus at this point in time, my first question is that, is it not important to direct that towards capital expenditure? What we have seen, and even in this government and past governments as well, that whenever you talk about fiscal stimulus, it automatically seems to get directed towards the consumer, which doesn't always come back via greater investment. Yes, it helps capacity utilization, etc. But in the current scenario, maybe the idea should be to, like you say, push affordable housing, push government spending towards something like that, which has a greater multiplier effect. That's my first question.
No, I agree. That's precisely what I've written in the piece, that we should go for capital spending, because that is sustainable. I mean, if you do a proliferation of subsidies or consumer-focused measures, then those are likely to be less sustainable. But housing, for example, or other big-ticket infrastructure projects, if we can fast-track them, go bigger on them, it's not only those things which get built, but the multiplier effects on income and consumption will also be there. So definitely, focus should be on capital expenditure, not on a careless spending spree, not at all.
What do you make of the state spending? There isn't much in your article about the fact that state fiscal deficits perhaps are on the upside as well. So if you look at the consolidated state plus center fiscal boost to the economy, that at 6% is substantial, Dhiraj.
Look, I mean, fiscal deficit is not an end in itself. I mean, there is no particular level at which the economy must be at any point. So, I mean, 3% is a number. I think we've been inspired by the European Union's European Monetary Union's target. But I think the essential point I'm making is that fiscal policy, like monetary policy, must run counter-cyclically. So when you're in good times, and if you talk to me when we are in better times, when we are at 8% plus, I will definitely advocate a fiscal tightening and moving down towards 2, even 1%. But when the economy is in a slowdown, you have to be counter-cyclical. So does 3.2, I mean, what is the sanctity of 3.2? Why can't we have 3.8 to give the economy a necessary boost? Because ultimately, if you get growth, that's what will get your deficit down. That's what will get your stressed assets down. So I think right now we've got to bat for growth. And I think a marginal, I'm not talking about a very big fiscal expansion, but a marginal fiscal expansion focused on key programs like Housing for All, I think is the kind of boost we need right now. And also to draw in private investment, build confidence in private investment. And once private investment picks up, then the government must withdraw. And as I've written in my piece, very often the government doesn't, but at least from where I'm sitting, I'll be advising the government to step back once the private sector steps in.
Some would argue, Dhiraj, that the government has been spending all this while anyway. They have been spending for the last couple of years. Even from the monetary standpoint, if you look at it from a 2-year standpoint, rates have been lower by nearly 200 basis points. So if this is not stimulus enough, and if this is not encourage private sector to come out and spend, what will?
Well, I don't think it's stimulus enough. And don't forget, it's not only the fact that I think monetary policy could accommodate even more given that growth has fallen. But on the fiscal side, the deficit has actually been reduced significantly in the last 3 years that the government has taken power. Of course, taken office, this particular government. Of course, there's been a switch from consumption to investment, but that's probably not enough. At least we've not seen the results so far. And I'm not saying any of this is a substitute for continuing structural reforms. I think the government remains committed to structural reform, as can be seen by its the introduction of GST, a bankruptcy law, ease of doing business. We are also moving ahead with strategic disinvestments, including Air India. So I think the government remains committed to doing what it takes to revive the economy. But at this point, it seems for several reasons, and because we are in a business cycle which is on the downturn, we need something to boost, to just counter the cycle, and the cycle will pick up. I have no doubt about that.
Dhiraj, you're not a believer of the theory. I know that proponents of it are largely based in Mumbai, that if you do have to loosen up on the fisc, the money should go into bank recap, because you need those bank balance sheets to clean up before anything happens. I know that there are people who don't believe in that and say that you can borrow from the bond market, etc. But you don't think that the twin balance sheet problem, addressing that starts with addressing bank balance sheets?
Well, I mean, the banking sector is a problem, but I would not favor loosening the fisc to recapitalize banks. I would much more be in favor of loosening the fisc to invest in capital expenditure, because that's what will get you the multiplier effects. I think there are several strategies which can work with banks, and the government is working on them. I think the best strategy to solve many of our problems is higher growth. I mean, until we are stuck at a 6% level, many of our problems will continue, including those of NPAs. I think there are other solutions to banks, but I would not at this point favor a fiscal loosening just to recapitalize banks.
Dhiraj, good talking to you. Many thanks, Niti, for joining us today. Dhiraj Nayyar from the Niti Aayog, you're also columnist at BloombergView, spoken about how the government will have to loosen its purse strings. You can catch that on BloombergQuint.com.